Hang on. Hi, it's everybody. It's Marianne Harris here of Hard at Work. And once again, I'm doing a podcast interview. Today, I have Alexis on the call with me today. And so, as you know, the podcast series is really about helping you make an impact legacy in your business. So, thank you for joining us today. And Alexis, I'm so glad to meet you, and so glad that you're on the call with me today. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how'd you get started doing what you're doing.
Yeah, great. Well, first, thanks for having me on. I'm so excited to be here and to chat with you, and it's great to meet you face to face here. So I am a time management and productivity coach.
Okay.
And this means that I help people with big lives, big jobs, usually both,
Yeah.
to figure out how to do more of what they want, less of what they don't, and reduce stress at the same time. So I like to say I help people do more and stress less. It's often about learning how to use your time in a way that is consistent with your values and with your goals. Because a lot of times we're in a technological world where stuff is coming at us all the time. And most people do what I call letting the day happen to you. And so I help people, take control so that they're using their time in a way that is really intentional.
Right. I guess where it really gets me is when Google sends me a thing and says, "You've got an error on your site." And I'm going, I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
You're like, just ignore that one.
I go on a little hunt to see what they're looking for. So,
right.
But yeah, that's where I guess I would get distracted and certainly not focused and organized as you would call it. So, like you were saying, allowing the day to happen to me. So tell me, how'd you kind of get into it? Like I see that a lot of entrepreneurs or people like that would, and also tell us a little bit more, like who do you like to work with?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I guess I'm going to start way back at the beginning. Right?
Yeah, okay, sure.
I was always a hyper-organized child. Let's just say I was someone who was breaking out graph paper when I was 8 to make myself a schedule for the week. And then I would cross-reference that with the TV guide because I knew I was only allowed to watch a half an hour of TV a day. And I was always looking for ways in high school and in college to do the absolute best that I could. I was always a straight A student, but I also wanted to do that in the least amount of time or effort possible. So I was always looking for loopholes, strategizing about systems, like trying to get it out of my head and so that I could do more with less effort and less stress. And then in the work world, I spent the first 15 years of my career running HR and business operations in startups. So I like to say I did everything other than sales and engineering. So finance, HR, putting offices together, ordering, furniture, etc. And running teams. And I was always very early stage. I'm in the Bay Area, so lots of tech startups around here. I was always one of the first few employees. And it became really clear that in a fast-paced startup environment, people were burning out a lot and that they weren't very good at using their time in an effective way. You may be at the office 12 hours, but how many of those hours are you actually working versus how many of those hours are you like playing foosball or whatever? And it became really clear over time that my superpower was the ability to get things done and not burn out.
Right.
Which was a skill set that people around me didn't really possess. And so people started to seek me out for that sort of thing. Eventually, I started doing some, productivity workshops and things at the companies where I worked for. And I'm always also a huge nerd about this stuff. So I'm always looking for different systems.
Right.
I also, I had my first kid about 10 years ago. And I noticed at that time that everybody around me who was also having kids was super stressed all the time. And I was working full time in an office and I wasn't feeling this stress. And so I started thinking, not that it was perfect, but I started thinking, what am I doing that's different than what other people are doing?
Right.
What are other people who I see being successful in both the work and home environment? What are they doing that's different than what other people are doing? And for me, it came down to systems. Like, how do we create repeatable systems in our lives that offload all of that mental allostatic load of, oh, I've forgotten I have to do this thing, or, there's 35 things I have to do before tomorrow, and what are they? And I've forgotten some of them, and really get that outside and into systems where we don't have to carry that burden with us all the time.
Yeah.
And so
I guess my tool for that was make long lists, and then I would just check them off as I went through. But after a while, I just said, this list thing is becoming too anal.
Yeah, it's interesting. People could definitely describe me as anal. Like, I always say that a list is not a system, because a list is it's still, what I find is that, we make lists, people make lists. Some people are good at checking things off, like you were. Some people are good at making the list, but not good at checking the things off. And
Yeah.
then there's also this burden of, there's still 50 things on the list at the end of the day, and I feel guilty for not doing them, even though there's no way I could have done all of these things today.
Right.
And so I help people and teach them a method of sort of task management that allows them to really be realistic about what their schedule looks like and what their tasks look like, and meld them in such a way that they're not ending every day with a giant list of things that they didn't do, right? That they're scheduling them on the appropriate times when they have time to do it, so they don't feel guilty every single day.
Right, right. Well, I liked your idea about you have the superpower. So how do you other people find their superpower? Do you help them find it when they work with you?
Yeah, so I would say that I think a lot of people, when they come to work with me, they know their specific superpower, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not in the realm of time management and productivity. And so, I would say lots of, you asked me as well, like, who do I work with, right? I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. I work with working parents of any stripe. And I work with people who are sort of mid to high level managers, often in realms that I don't actually understand. Like, I have a lot of, very tech clients, right?
Right,
And I bet you that I don't understand anything that they do all day.
right,
So our realms of common sense are not the same, right?
right,
They have they have their superpower, and it's the ability to do AI related things for whatever company. They
right,
have that superpower. What they need is my help to sort of take control back of their time so that they can actually use that superpower. Because a lot of times when people have, they've been independent contributors and then they become managers, it's really difficult for them to say, okay, now I have to manage all these people and all this stuff, and I have all these meetings. How do I actually use my superpower, that brain of mine, to do the stuff that I'm supposed to move forward? And so I actually don't help people necessarily find their superpower. I help them harness it so that they can continue to use it by putting systems around their life.
yeah. I guess when you mentioned superpower, I mean, like, we all have a superpower, yeah, right. But it sounded to me like you also could help them maybe find theirs, because if it's disorganized in a mess,
Yeah.
they may not know where it is.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Because a lot of my clients, I would say the vast majority of my clients are very successful people when you look at
Right,
them, right? But a lot of them have gotten there by brute force, right?
right,
And so they've done it by working long, hard hours. They've
right,
done it at the expenses of their personal lives. And
right,
so it is much more about, I don't love the word balance, because I don't think that's not exactly the right word. Like, if you're an entrepreneur, you probably don't have an even 50-50 split, right?
right,
But it's whatever those ratios are that make sense for you, right? So
right,
how do I help them harness that and relieve the friction around, oh, I have to get this thing done and I have a million emails to answer and all these people are demanding my time, so that I can actually focus on my superpower.
right, right. And I guess, too, what I'm sort of hearing what you said is that, uh, giving them their time back, and in some aspects of that. And the time back is just helping them get more organized to have that family time or whatever it is that is important to them.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right. It's whatever it is that is important to them, right? And for some people, that's like starting a new business and having
Yeah.
fun with that. And for some people, it's just like, I need an hour to decompress every day and watch Netflix. Like,
Right,
that's completely valid too, right?
right, right,
But I feel like so many people have gone through life, especially working parents, assuming that this is just the way it is. Like, I'm
mhm,
stressed out all the time
mhm.
and I have a million things to do and I never am going to have time for myself, maybe when my kids are 18.
Yeah.
But that's not, I just think there is another way and I can help them get there.
Right, right, right. So you already talked a little bit about your challenges and why people have these kind of time challenges. So what are some other obstacles that you find that your clients face?
So I think that, it's interesting. There's a lot of that obstacles that just kind of like exist in a modern workplace right now, right? Things like the fact that we have notifications for email and Slack and all of these things that
Right.
interrupt us all day long, right? And it makes it very hard to get our actual work done because we're constantly being distracted. There
Right.
was a study done out of UC Irvine a few years ago that showed that not only are we distracted or interrupted every 11 minutes in the workplace, but
Mhm.
that it takes us on average 23 minutes to regain focus. So you can see when you do that
Right.
math, this is like this never ending cycle of people getting to the end of the day and feeling as though they weren't messing around, like they did stuff all day, but yet they didn't cross anything off of their to-do list. And so there's this feeling of kind of a lack of accomplishment at
Yeah.
the end of
Yeah.
the day.
Yeah.
And
I
maybe it's stress.
recently allowed LinkedIn to notify me, and I don't allow anybody to notify me. And
Right.
it's kind of interesting, like some of the things okay, it's probably I could do without it.
Hmm.
But so I'm going, okay. And the other one is most annoying is that, because we're all into this fires and when our power is going to be turned off. So I enrolled in this text for P&G to notify me. And I was like, like, and you can't even unsubscribe from it. So it's sort
Right.
of like, okay, how do you get rid of these people that want to notify you? So
Right.
yeah, I can see as you were saying about the notifications that
Yeah.
it's
So there's a lot. Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, I think my approach to everybody is that we first have to learn who you are so
right,
that we can build systems around who you are already.
right,
Because it doesn't work to just read a book and say, okay, I'm just going to implement this. Like,
right,
I wouldn't have a job if that worked. Right. And so I approach people. So, I approach people from a very individualized perspective, but
right,
also I feel like a lot of people have similar challenges, right? So it's like the tech. It's just having a lot of people are people who are very good at saying yes to other people, right?
mhm,
And they want to, they want to do that. And the world is made of people who are obliged to other people, right?
right,
But on the other side of that, we do this at giving ourselves a disservice because
right,
we can't say yes to everything, right? Every time we say yes to something, we're saying no to something else. So we better be saying yes and no to the right things, right?
right,
um, People have a lot, just issues. Meetings is something that comes up all the time. Like there's so many meetings, and like, are they doing anything?
yeah,
I had one client who we looked at his calendar, and he had more than 40 hours of meetings scheduled every week, which meant when is he doing any of the other work, or they, and also getting 300 emails a day and things like this. And so a lot of it is really about taking control, not only of our time, but also of the elements that exist around us and in our environment. And sometimes you do have to be a little courageous and say, you know what, I don't check email every time I get a notification. I've actually turned my notifications off, and I check email 3 times a day now. And if
yeah,
you need me other than that, because it's an emergency, you're going to have to call me,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And helping people to sort of understand that, one, that's okay in most environments,
yeah,
and helping people to break habits that they've gotten into, right? It's
right,
very, like, a lot of things are just very addictive, right? We've gotten into these patterns. Behavior change is hard, and so we need to address each of our individual challenges by thinking about it from a behavioral perspective.
right, right. Okay, so given that you brought that up, so what are some success stories or things you'd like to share that you've able to help clients?
Yeah, so I would say the number one comment that I get from everybody who's worked with me is that they feel in control.
Okay.
Like, I think for that is like that statement of I feel in control now, right? And it's really interesting because I think sometimes people come to me and they think, well, I'm going to work with Alexis,
Mhm.
and then my to-do list is going to get shorter.
Right.
And that's not necessarily true. I mean, that could be true, but that's not that's not a result that I guarantee.
Yeah.
What I do help people with is knowing and understanding, look, we are going to, live a long life, but someday we're going to die. And when we die, we're going to have a long list of things we didn't do, right? So we
Right.
want to make sure that the things we did do were more important than the things we didn't do, because it would be a boring life if we got everything done. And so I think, you know, when people first start working with me, they're often very overwhelmed, like
Mhm.
showing up late to things. There's too much on their plate. email inboxes with like 30,000 unread emails and things like this, which is not, I mean, I'm not even saying that in hyperbole, like that's true.
Yeah.
And it's nothing to be ashamed of, right? It's just, we live in this world that's kind of crazy and sometimes things get a little out of control.
Yeah.
And so when I work with people, them saying, I feel in control now, maybe nothing's different, right? Maybe nothing's different from the way, the actual number of things that they have to do, but they are feeling much better about it and they have a lot more agency.
Right.
In terms of success stories, one of my clients worked at one of the tech giants who will not be named, and he was a director level person there. And he told me that his HR the HR business partner had come to him and said, how are you so much better at managing your staff and your to-dos and all of this stuff than all the other directors? And he said, well, you should have seen me 6 months ago before I worked with Alexis.
Yeah.
And so, that's been a great, for other people, so for not only someone to see it in themselves, but for someone outside on the periphery to say, wow, you are really doing things at an optimal level and you're calm about it, right? Like you don't steal frenzied all the time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think, what you're doing is obviously very beneficial, and it's just trying to figure out, in workplaces how they can use you more, and I'm sure that you've already figured that one out.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? I do a good mix of trying to get people where they are and help them where they are. So I do a lot of individual coaching. I also do group coaching. So sometimes a whole company will come through my program, or sometimes, I'll run a program where it's just anybody could join and there's a whole bunch of people. And I just finished a group today that was, 3 women who didn't know each other at all, but they're all in the same group together. And I also do corporate workshops because sometimes people just want 2 hours of like, here are the top things that you could try, right?
Right. Yeah. So how do you do that? Do you do via web, or do you go in there into the workplaces and do your magic?
I do both. So, for some of my clients, I do virtual trainings because, they're on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast, and, that just made sense.
Yeah.
I also, I do, if I'm in the Bay Area, I do a lot of in-person workshops.
Yeah.
And then also I fly out to do workshops as well. So one of my clients whose main office is in San Francisco, they're flying me out next Tuesday to their Seattle office to do a few workshops for their team over there. So I try to make sure that I can meet people with whatever they need, right?
Right. Yeah. No, if you got to be flexible, I guess, in order to serve your audience and who wants to work with you, right?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit more how we can help you, or how we can help you get more clients, or do you need any more?
I mean, I am on a mission to help people live better lives,
right?
Where their time is intentional. So I would say I always want to serve more people.
Right.
One thing that I think people could do to just get a taste of what I offer is I send out a weekly newsletter. I only write things that I feel provide value, so you will not be spammed by me. But if people go to my website, which hopefully you can put in the show notes because my name is hard to spell, alexishaselberger.com. You can, and alexishaselberger.com/subscribe. People can get a free distraction minimization action plan to help them start saving time right away, and then get signed up for my newsletter as well. That's a great way to kind of have an intro.
Right.
If people want to chat with me, I have a free consultation available for anyone. And so they can book that directly from my website as well. And then I also have an online course on Udemy. So if people are looking for, maybe they're not quite ready to have like a full-on coaching relationship, but they just want a taste and they want some tips, I have an online course as well. And I'm happy to send you the link for that.
Yeah. I think that's what happens. Most people, like, they might know of you somewhere doing whatever, or heard of you doing this or that, but they still want that taste, that bite size kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, I've really enjoyed the call. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we end the call?
Well, just thank you. And it was so nice to have this conversation with you. It's such a pleasure.
Yeah. I guess, it's sort of like when we're talking about they want a taste or they want the bite. I always say people like the 5-minute bite when it comes to food. So, even with my little hobby of the pie business, they all want a 5-minute bite. But some people want more, right? And so you have to figure out how you can serve them in that regard. So
Right.
anyway, I love this conversation that we had today. It went really well. And I think it really will help a lot of people make an impactful legacy in their business because, like you were saying, if they are more organized, they feel more in control, they're going to actually make a bigger difference and a better difference for all those that they work with, right?
Right.
Around them.
Yeah. The butterfly effect going outward, right? It's like,
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, thank you, Alexis, for joining us. And I'll post your information that you have available on your page. And anybody wants to listen to her, her posts will be up within the next couple of days. But, we'll keep going, let's keep promoting you and go from there. So thank you, everybody, for listening. And my final thought is always be kind to each other. Okay, thank you.